So, hello everyone, and happy to have all of you today again in our RegTalk of May 2025. We have today many information to share with you. It's very important information in several countries. As you will see all along the webinar, it will be in Argentina, South Africa, Moldova, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, South Korea, India, and Kenya. So we'll start with the Argentina. In our first country, the update will be related to the fees applicable for the 2025 and Mercosur technical regulation. So let's start with the fees for 2025. This table here, as you can see, display the updated fee list published in by the AMAT on last January of this year. So it's outline prices for various procedure, for the registration, for the amendment, for the license transfer for both medical device and IVD. And in comparison to with the last year, the increase in the registration and licensing fee across various category and risk class, it's approximately 50%, but when considering the published value in Argentinian pesos. This represents a significant rise. However, I have compared it to the USD dollar because of the fluctuation. It may not be the same increase. So if we compare the 2024 fees converted to USD dollar at the exchange rate of 2024 with the fees, the conversion to USD dollar of at the rate exchange of 2025, still have an increase, but around 25%. What? This is lower than 50% compared with the Argentinian pesos, but it remains a considerable adjustment that stakeholders should take into account. So the second update in Argentina is related to Mercosur technical regulation. So last January of this year, the authority adopted the resolution GMC 2521 via the disposition 64/2025, and this come to replace the outdated 2002 framework, which is the disposition. This is important to remind all these numbers or the references of this disposition and its resolution, because this is how they are widely known. So it's replaced disposition of the ANMAT 2318 of 2002 based on GMC resolution 4000. So the goal will be to modernize this medical device regulation in Mercosur, and in order to reflect technological advancements and harmonize more all the region. This new regulation introduced detailed and precise definition not present in the earlier version, which include like the definition and details and included in this new version are related to software as medical device, nanomaterial, active diagnostic and therapeutic devices, implantable devices, etc. And it's also defined some roles like legal manufacturer, importer. So all these are well defined now. To just come, this definition are always welcome to reduce ambiguity and ensure that everyone involved, both regulator, manufacturer, importer, everyone can understand exactly that definition. So the first one was about the definition of several things, as we mentioned, some of them. And for the classification, previously the classification was limited and general. Now we have like a 21 classification rules, as we know in other regulation, with the like 4 big groups, rules from 1 to 4, 5 to 8, 9 to 13 and 14 to 21, each one for a group of devices, so non-invasive, invasive, etc. Some example of this classification are that software that make critical decision would be class 4. Nanomaterial, it depends of their exposure risk, and breast implant and would be class 4 because of their high risk. So all this position would help to ensure that devices are regulated accordingly with the real risk. That was the second point that we discussed in this Mercosur technical regulation. Now for the registration procedure is more formal. So regarding, for example, the manufacturer letters, importer, there are some precise detail, like importer must present a declaration from the manufacturer, legalized apostille issued within the past 2 years. For the grouping, either the system or family as defined in Argentina or in the Mercosur, now it's required shared intended use, technical characteristic, and regulatory consistency. While maybe this was already details like that, but the regulation come to this new regulation, it's give more precision. So for the importer info, for example, it must include the full legal name, complete address, contact info, identification of the technical responsible person. So just to make the system more transparent and minimize any counterfeit or problem related to the importation in that case, for example. Related to the labeling and instruction for use. So now for professional use, class 1 and class 2 devices, the digital IFU are allowed. Physical copy can be excluded only if safety isn't compromised, of course. And labeling now must include it states clearly that it must include the manufacturer, importer, name, address, lot of or serial number, manufacturer and expiration date, sterilization method, etc., etc. I invite you to look into the regulation to have the detailed list of all this precision. So all this improvement are necessary to protect all the users and improve the post-market traceability, since we are talking about instruction for use and labeling. Related to the technical report, it now require also description of the component, risk assessment, and safety certification, sterilization process, etc. The accessory addition. So it mentioned that if listed in the original report, it's automatically covered. If new, it can be added through a documented update explaining compatibility and function. So, revalidation requires submission before expiry, and cancellation must be formally requested by the registrant. So, all these are some details regarding the technical regulation. And we come to an end regarding the updates in Argentina, and we switch to South Africa, where we will see three groups or three different regulatory updates. The first one is the ISO 13485 for establishment license. And the second one regarding the authority joining the MDSAP. And the last one is related to the MPOX diagnostic test kit. So the first point would be the ISO 13485, and this communication that was published on April last month of this year. It's updates stakeholder on the new mandatory requirement of ISO 13485 for obtaining or renewing a medical device establishment license. So as we all know, since 2017, South Africa has required establishment license, still requiring the access to the market via establishment license. So this regulation has now evolved to demand ISO 13485 to renew or to obtain a medical device establishment license. The first phase, there are several phases. The first phase already over, allowed establishment time to adopt ISO 13485 without burden of immediate proof. This grace period facilitated market continuity while encouraging the preparation for full compliance, of course. And from June 2025, the ISO 13458 will become non-negotiable. So whether renewing, applying for a new license or under documentary proof must be ready available for the SAPRA verification. And to meet the new requirement certificate, to meet this new requirement, the certificate should accurately reflect the establishment legal identity and is issued by an approved body. There is a list of the approved body in the website of the authority that could be consulted. And those in process must demonstrate commitment via agreement. In this phase, we still have. So even if you're not applying for a new or renewed license, if you hold a valid certificate, SAPRA will request it for verification. So we have to prepare proactively to avoid disruption. Modification to the or amendment to licenses or product portfolio now fall under ISO 13485 verification. So this will ensure that any addition to the product list meet the same stringent QMS criteria. This was the phase 4 for the. So now for phase 5, SAPRA has set a final milestone for complete sector compliance. So by April 2028, every establishment must have submitted a verifiable ISO 13485 certificate. So the deadline is April 2028 to have the certificate ready. All the phases before it was like in process. And the second update today is SAPRA has officially joined the MDSAB as an affiliate member last month, April 2025. So this move would reflect the intention of SAPRA or commitment to straighten the regulatory oversight of medical device and IVD. And we'll see the more detail in the next slide. So through MDSAB, SAPRA can now rely on the audits conducted by peer regulators. And this collaboration will help to improve resource utilization and enhance the ability to monitor compliance and speeding up the process. And yeah, so approval of foreign manufactured devices for the market will be faster. And in response to the 2025 Africa CDC declaration of Mpox as public health emergency of continental security, in this third update today in South Africa, we see that SAPRA issued this communication to outline the regulatory status of the Mpox. The focus is on safety, quality and performance of the diagnostic. So we'll see what is permitted and what is not permitted in the country regarding to mpox devices. So only RT-PCR based molecular diagnostic tests for mpox are approved. Rapid antigen and antibody tests, including self-test kits, are not authorized due to their low clinical sensitivity. And all manufacturers must obtain prior approval and verification through an establishment license under Section 22C of Medicine Act. So stakeholder with previously listed mpox diagnostic test must engage with SAPRA for re-verification. And there is a second document. We discussed one document that was related to mpox, like the which one are applicable, are allowed, or which one are not. In the second document called like or named Introduction to Mpox Test Kits Regulation, there is the broader requirements are outlined here. So you can see in this document that mpox molecular test kit fall under class D, IVD. So it's high public risk, health risk, that's why. And this test must undergo national reference lab evaluation and align with WHO interim guidance and SAPRA technical specification to be eligible for approval from the authority. And for the licensing requirement, only licensed establishment may deal with mpox kits. So this kit cannot be advertised to the public and must include clear labeling that limit use to trained professionals. This application must be submitted by email with complete documentation. The fee would vary depending on the license type, and the process includes a primary review, observation letter if needed, and the final decision based on the performance results and regulatory compliance. Here we can see the time frame, estimated to 6 to 8 weeks, if all requirements are met, of course. And finally, for mpox diagnostic test kit in South Africa, the application must include a robust set of documents, including WHO or international approval evidence, ISO certification, and detailed product technical data, of course, like former registration process for establishment license in this case. Our third country is Moldova, and we will review license renewal updates. We'll see an overview and then we'll focus on the updates. So in accordance with the current legislation, both renewal and modification of medical devices registration require submitting exact same documentation as for a new registration. So for CE marked product, a simplified notification would be based registration pathway is used, but it's this for the renewal and modification is the same as for the registration. The following documentation must be submitted. So a new mandatory agreement between the manufacturer and authorized representative, replacing the previous required LOA. This must be submitted in both original hard copy and electronic scan. The EU declaration of conformity and EC certificate must be provided in scanned format, and a complete list of local dealers is required, including a full record of product deliveries per dealer over the past 5 years. Now, a key regulatory change will always like we see an overview, but we just focus what is the key change in this this, and that we would like to share with you today. That the key regulatory change is the replacement of this, as we said, the older LOA form with a more comprehensive agreement form. So this former agreement between the manufacturer and authorized representative is now mandatory. In Malaysia, we have 4 big regulatory updates to discuss in detail today. First one related to conformity assessment, and the second one to HIV self-test kit, then the product classification letter, and finally advertising. So for the conformity assessments on March of this year, the Malaysian Medical Device Authority issued this circular known as number 1, 2025, which update this conformity assessment process for medical devices that were approved by recognized foreign regulator. This, again, objective accelerate the process. So the MDA now officially recognized approval granted by the following regulatory authority: the EU, the Japan, Australia, Canada, USA, and UK. And it is open to add more country, so it could be updated as they leave it in a note in the circular. So this international recognition is meant to eliminate all the redundancy and to align with Malaysia with these global regulatory practices. So devices that have already passed the regulatory approval by this recognized body, of course, will undergo facilitated verification process instead of a full local assessment. So the MDA will accept existing compliance evidence from manufacturer, significantly will reduce this timeline of the process. So there are, as we said, again, different benefits. Avoid the repeated assessments, reduce cost of manufacturer and accelerate local registration process. It would benefit everyone, industry and public health, of course. And for the second update related to the HIV, we'll highlight the key difference between the first edition that was published on February of last year and this second edition. So we did a comparison and analysis, and here we'll show you the result that focus on the update. So for the second edition, provide a more detailed breakdown of the regulatory requirement, notably in performance evaluation, conformity assessment, and labeling. It adds specific table for submission document, evaluation time, fees, so improving all this, giving more clarity and consistency to the document. First point, as we said, performance criteria clarification. So this should say that it's already existed, like this threshold, this specification already existed in the first edition, but in the second edition, it is like standardized and presented more clearly in the table. So it makes like the evaluation expectation more accessible for regulator and manufacturer. It is well presented, easily and clearly presented. For the, I think, labeling now, yeah, for the labeling, the second edition significantly straightened the labeling rules. So it make user guidance more visual and digital. So there is an inclusion of the QR codes linking the MOH test now, this platform. and requiring complaint channel. So all this to enhance public health outreach. An example for labels must clearly indicate self-test use if all these details are now clearly stated in the second version. If there is any doubt here, it is clarified. So previously mentioned informally, the checklist, the document checklist previously mentioned informally, the required documents are now formally itemized in a table format. So it's more transparent and easy to follow and understand. These points are largely consistent with the first edition, means sales, distribution, advertising, clarification related to HIV self-test kit, but are restated in a stronger language in the second edition to reinforce the enforcement and compliance clarity, especially concerning who can legally sell the HIV test and how. And finally, the second edition gave like a post-market vigilance more prominence. It outlined clear steps for reporting incident and clarified that surveillance is not optional. The, and the list of the required guideline is also references for help. Related to the product classification letters in Malaysia, this update introduced a validity period for all newly issued product classification letters, so ensuring that they stay aligned with evolving regulatory framework. So, as of May 2025, every new classification letter will expire 2 years after its issuance. And here in this table, it's outlined the classification letter status based on when it was issued. So for letters issued before June 2023, they are no longer valid. Those issued between mid 2023 and mid 2025 remain valid until May 2027, and new rules will apply to all letters issued after that. So starting May 2027, we can expect, or we are expecting, a new framework that will replace this current classification system. There is no information available now related to that, but will be provided soon by the MDA, as they mentioned in note. For the advertising in Malaysia, starting March of this year, all medical device advertisement application must be submitted online via Google Forms. So it's kind of modernization of the system and easy to make it more accessible to the applicant as well. So this digital transition include two major updates. All submissions must go through this Google form, as we said, and also the approval letter will now be emailed, and no physical document will be mailed anymore. So applicants should ensure that all information is correctly entered in this Google form, especially the email address, because it's there where the digital certificate will be sent. As this is like the, as we said, this is the most important information that should be correct to get your certificate, because no hard copy will be issued. And in Sri Lanka, The update is related to GMP inspection waiver. We will see. So the NMRA, or as known, the National Medicine Regulatory Authority, had issued a 2-year waiver for GMP inspection for listed and Class 1 medical devices, kind to a way to simplify the product registration during this period. So this, as we said, this is applicable to specific devices class, and it eliminates immediate need for on-site GMP inspection in those cases, the listed and class 1 devices. And there is, sorry, an Annex 1 published in the website of the authority and in this document as well for the list of eligible devices. So to qualify for the waiver, manufacturer must submit specific documentation that demonstrate basic operational standard and manufacturing scope, as detailed here. And once verified, the waiver serves as a temporary stand-in for GMP certification and must be attached with the product registration application. So this waiver is time-bound. Manufacturers are expected to transition to ISO 9001 certification by May 2027, after which GMP waiver will no longer apply. So have 2 years, then it will be mandatory. In South Korea, the update is related to the digital medical device. It's a lot of information that we are sharing today, but we are in middle of the year and a lot of things happening. So try to be fast, but you can always come back to the presentation and consult it with in details. Everything is detailed, but I can understand it's a lot of information. So in South Korea, as we said, this presentation related to the digital medical device will summarize the Digital Medical Product Act from a regulatory perspective. We'll focus on licensing, classification, clinical trial, etc. And the law was enforced by the authority last February of this year. So the Act applies to digital devices and convergence products involving software or so it regulates all stages from manufacture, import to clinical use and also post-market actions. So to manage safety effectively, the authority or MFDS classified product and assigned risk grade. This classification determines regulatory requirement for licensing and evaluation can be consulted in detail for this case of digital medical devices. Entity must be licensed to manufacture or import digital medical products. Each product may also require permit certificates or formal report submission. So regulated clinical trial and performance tests are essential, and MFDS approval or committee review is typically required. Software is subject to strict oversight, including version tracking, user scope definition, and conformity assessments for quality control. And manufacturer must monitor for safety and cybersecurity threats. Those with certified system may benefit from exemption and reporting and approval timeline. And finally, for South Korea, support devices are regulated more lightly, but still required reporting. So the authority has MFDS has the authority to act if risk or misleading claim are identified. In India, there is a draft related to the risk classification list for cardiovascular and neurological medical devices. So here we summarize the draft regulatory notice issued by the government of India regarding this classification of those devices. It was released last month on April 2025. And since it is a draft, it is open now for the stakeholder. So the drafts include a wide range of high-risk cardiovascular devices such as heart valve, stent, etc., pacemaker, all that fall under Class D. And the authority opened this draft for stakeholder consultation. As said, all association professionals are encouraged to submit their comments within 30 days. So I think it's coming to an end now since it started on April. Um, so it's coming to an end. I think this is our last country today, and it will be very brief. It's Kenya, and it's related to the reliance mechanism for marketing authorization. So we'll summarize the regulatory guidelines issued by the Kenya Pharmacy and Poison on reliance mechanism for marketing authorization. This was published on January of this year. So reliance is available for medical devices and diagnostic based on risk level and prior approval from trusted agency. And devices must meet conformity and documentation standard. And as we said, as this is the evaluation supported by RRA, FDA, EMA, TGA, the typical reference country. So we come to an end to this webinar, and it was a lot of information. So open a floor for one or two question maximum. Yeah.
Yes, hello. Hi, Man. Thank you for the presentation. Regarding Argentina, I saw you mentioned something regarding the technical regulations for the Mercosur. Does that apply to all members?
Yes, of course. That's it's applied to all members, and it's completely replaced the old frame. It's just that all the members of the Mercosur must adopt this resolution, and in Argentina, like each member would have its disposition that is binding to this resolution 2521. Here we discuss the one related to Argentina, but generally it's the same. All members should it applies to all members. Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, Ivana.
Yes, I have a question for South Africa. Is there any update for broad registration?
Yeah, for now, not yet. Not yet. It's still applicable. The registration applicable now still the establishment license, and We expect official decision on the proper product registration next year at the beginning of 2026. So there is no medical device have been yet called up for registration, and but it is expected to commence on 2026.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you. So I think it will. Thank you all for your attendance. I hope it was very interesting information for you that would help you in your in all this 8 country today, and hope to see you all in our next meeting next month with more regulatory updates, and maybe the same or other country. It's depend of the authority. Thank you. Thank you. Bye
thank you,
bye.
ma'am.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you, ma'am. Bye.
Bye. Thank you.